Buenas amigos de a.k.a. soy Jordi, estamos en el Gamelab, estamos con Ron Gilbert para hablar un poco de su carrera, de su nuevo juego y a ver qué está preparando. I guess you've had tons of interviews. So the PR guy told me we have like 10 minutes, so I'll try to be quick. About Thimbleweed Park. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. It's not an easy name. What challenges do you face as a game developer when trying to make an old school game in the modern times?
I think there's some interesting challenges. I mean, I find them fun, right? I don't find them a bad thing, right? I think they're fun to do, and I think really the challenge for Thimbleweed Park is to make a game that kind of captures all of the charm of those, old school adventure games, but also, can deal with a lot of the more modern sensibilities that people have. I think, people have kind of a different way that they expect narrative to unfold, and they have a different way that they expect to be focused in the game. Like, a game like Monkey Island or Maniac Mansion, we didn't really care if you had focus or not, right? We kind of expected you at that time, and players expected to be confused. They expected to kind of wander around and wonder what they should be doing. But I don't think you can do that in a modern game. I think you need to give people focus. And it's not about giving people hints or a hint system or little arrows that point to stuff on the screen. It's just about giving them narrative focus so they kind of understand, oh, this is what I should be doing. And I think that's kind of the biggest challenge that we've had.
Just following that line, okay, one thing that we didn't have back in the days when at least I played Monkey Island was internet. So how do you create user agency when nowadays anyone can find any solution on the internet?
I think that's an unsolvable problem. I think there's just no way that you can prevent people from going and looking up stuff. And I think if you try too hard to combat that in some way, I think you end up making a game that's just can be confusing, right? There's too much randomness in the game because you don't want people to do a walkthrough of this stuff. So I think at a lot of places we just kind of ignored it. If you're the type of person that wants to go look up hints or wants to play the game with a walkthrough, you're just going to do that.
Okay. About designing puzzle games, point-and-click adventures, how do you walk the line between creating overly convoluted puzzles or really trivial ones? How do you know when you hit the perfect balance?
I don't think you ever know whether you hit the balance. I think this is one of those things that after the game comes out, you just kind of realize, oh, this was a really hard puzzle, or this was a really easy puzzle. We do a lot of play testing, so we bring a lot of people in and we watch them play the game. And some of that you get from the play testing, right? You think, oh, this is going to be a difficult puzzle, and then play testers, have no problem getting through it. There's a puzzle in Thimbleweed Park, which I thought was going to be a trivial puzzle, that everybody would just solve it in like literally 5 seconds of looking at it. But that's not ended up being the case. Is that the case that people who are playtesting the game are totally stumped on that puzzle, and I actually need to hint them. I need to say, okay, why don't you try this? So that's a puzzle that, I'm trying to decide, should I redesign it, or do I just make that, okay, well, that's a really hard puzzle now rather than a really simple puzzle, and adjust kind of other things around it. So I don't think you really know. You only know by watching people play the game.
And how do you face the overall design? So point-and-click adventures are really narrative driven. So do you like create the narrative first and then try to fit in some puzzles? You have some puzzles like in your mind, and then you kind of adapt the narrative to fit the puzzle that you thought about. How do you face this part of design?
For me, it really starts with the world, right? It's like I think about this world that I want to create, and then it's thinking about the story that kind of goes in that world, and then kind of from that really comes the main character, and then after that are really the puzzles. The puzzles are the thing that support the narrative. They are the thing that drives the narrative forward. So for me, you're always kind of starting with more narrative, world, character type issues before you move on to puzzles.
Are there anything that's clearly something that let me rephrase that. Um, is there anything new to designing point-and-click adventure games that that is clearly different than how you did it in the 90s?
I think the big thing is just that thing I talked about before about focus, right? It's like you want to give players a sense that they're doing the right thing, that they're on the right track, right? Without it being a dumb hint system. And it's just really what, what characters in the game are saying. When you're having dialogues with people, they're just subtly reinforcing to you that you are doing the right thing. And I think that's really the big change that I think, more modern players are looking for. And that's, that can be a little bit of a challenge, right? Because if you're doing a game like, Monkey Island or Maniac Mansion where you don't care about that stuff, you just don't care about it. But now we have to spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what could the player possibly be confused at this point, and how can we work that into dialogues that other people are having with the characters? So, that's kind of I think the big change in what we're doing.
One of the things we particularly remember about the Monkey Island games, about Maniac Mansion, is that kind of singular sense of humor that those games had. What should we expect in Thimbleweed Park?
Well, I think there's a lot of humor. I don't know that I can make an adventure game that wasn't humorous, that wasn't funny. I think that's kind of inherent in adventure games because you're asking the player to do a lot of weird, crazy stuff, and I think if you can wrap that in this kind of, a skin of humor, it just feels a lot better to the player. But Thimbleweed Park is probably a little bit darker humor than Maniac Mansion was. Maniac Mansion is a very kind of comic, cartoon type game with its humor. Monkey Island drifted a little bit more serious with the humor, and I think Thimbleweed Park, it's probably just a little more dark humor than you saw in Monkey Island.
And how do you come up with the jokes? How do you tackle the humor part of the writing of a video game?
I think it's just something you do. You write and you try to think of something funny to say, and a lot of times you don't. I mean, there are times when I'm writing and I'll write a sentence and I'll go, yeah, that's funny, but it could be funnier. And then I'll just write it again. I'll go, okay, that's funnier, but it could be funnier. And then you just write it again, right? And a lot of writing is that process, right? It's very rare that the perfect sentence comes out the first time you write it. It's just a lot of rewriting. It's a lot of telling yourself this could be better, and then just kind of trying to figure out, where the funny is in the thing that you're trying to write.
Okay, last couple of questions. I think in these past few years, we've seen how Telltale took adventure games to a different path. We have Dead Alley here in Germany doing kind of old school kind of adventure games. And I think it's clear that when Tim Schafer or you went to Kickstarter, there's the sense of the public that played the games back in the 80s and the 90s. I think we're expecting what do you, that the RD kind of the references in this genre can bring to this genre nowadays. So what do you think it is new in Thimbleweed Park? What a convoluted question.
Yeah, so I mean, what is new in Thimbleweed Park? I think Thimbleweed Park isn't necessarily what about it is new. I think the thing about Thimbleweed Park is what about it is old, right? Because the whole genesis of Thimbleweed Park was thinking about what is the charm of those old games? What is the charm of the old Lucasfilm games like Maniac Mansion or Monkey Island? And is there a way to really recapture that? Because I don't find when I play point and click adventures to game, I don't find that same sense of charm in them anymore. And I don't really know why. And so it was doing Thimbleweed Park was really kind of an experiment about, well, how can we recapture that thing that we did back then that seems to be so special to a lot of people?
And last question for those who might not know, what is Thimbleweed Park and when will we be able to play it?
Thimbleweed Park is a point-and-click adventure game, and it's about these two detectives that show up in this town because a dead body has been found in the river. And as they're kind of investigating the crime, they start to uncover this very strange, bizarre town of Thimbleweed Park. And so it's just about their journey into this weird rabbit hole of this town. And it'll be out in early 2017.